"Sir, that necklace belonged to my wife." I almost didn't say the words. The little girl standing beneath the flickering street lamp was maybe 9 years old, no taller than the flower stand she had built from an old wooden crate. Rain tapped against the plastic awning above her, turning the sidewalk into a mirror of blurred headlights and neon signs. She looked at me with wide green eyes, one hand wrapped tightly around a bundle of small white flowers. The other was closed around something hanging from a thin silver chain. I had been walking past her without a second glance. I had meetings waiting, men waiting, problems that normally disappeared the moment I entered a room. But then the streetlight caught the metal in her hand. My feet stopped. My breathing changed. I knew that pendant. I had watched my wife wear it for 12 years. Grace never took it off. Not at breakfast. Not at dinner. Not even when she slept. It was a small silver oval with a tiny star engraved across the center, scratched along one edge from years of use. The night Grace died, it disappeared from the evidence box along with several other personal belongings. I had searched for it more times than I could count. I had asked questions nobody wanted to answer. I had paid people to search places I couldn't reach myself. Nothing. Until tonight. Until this little girl. "Where did you get that?" My voice sounded colder than I intended. The girl glanced down at the pendant. Then she looked back at me. "My mom gave it to me." Mom. The word landed harder than it should have. I crouched slowly, keeping several feet between us so I wouldn't frighten her. "What's your name?" "Lily." She hesitated. "Lily Harper." Harper. I had never heard the name connected to Grace. But something about the way Lily held that necklace made my stomach tighten. She wasn't wearing it like jewelry. She was protecting it. "Did your mother tell you who it belonged to?" Lily nodded. "She said it was important." "Did she tell you why?" The girl shook her head. Rainwater slipped from the edge of the awning. Somewhere behind me, a car passed through the intersection, tires whispering across the wet pavement. I looked at the pendant again. Grace's pendant. The one I thought I would never see again. "Where is your mother now?" I asked. Lily's fingers closed around the necklace. For the first time, fear appeared in her eyes. "She told me never to give this to a man named Ethan." My blood went cold. I had not told her my name. Lily looked at me for another long second, then whispered. "She said if Ethan Callahan ever found me, I should run. My mother told me you would come looking for me." Lily's words followed me all the way to the black sedan waiting at the curb. I had heard threats, accusations, demands, and desperate pleas in my life, but nothing had prepared me for a 9-year-old girl knowing my name while holding the one thing I had spent years trying to find. I opened the rear door and looked back at her. "I am not going to hurt you, Lily." She did not move. Her small flower stand sat beneath the awning, surrounded by rain-darkened pavement and a few scattered white petals. "My mom said men like you make promises." I paused. She was not afraid because I had raised my voice. I had not. She was afraid because someone had taught her to be careful. "Your mother was right about one thing," I said. "You should never trust someone just because they say you are safe." Lily studied my face. Then she asked, "Can I bring my flowers?" I nodded. "Bring everything you need." She carefully gathered the flowers from the wooden crate, counting them one by one as if each mattered. I watched in silence. She had maybe 24 small bouquets, wrapped in simple paper and tied with pieces of string. There was nothing remarkable about them, except that she handled each one with extraordinary care. When she finally climbed into the car, she kept the silver pendant tucked beneath her sweater. I sat across from her instead of beside her. The city moved past the windows in streaks of yellow and white. For several blocks, neither of us spoke. Then Lily looked at me. "You were married to Grace." It was not a question. My chest tightened. "Yes." "She was nice." I stared at her. "You knew her?" Lily shook her head. "My mom knew her." That distinction mattered. "What was your mother's name?" "Sarah." I repeated the name silently. "Sarah Harper." The name stirred something buried beneath years of unanswered questions. I remembered Grace's final week. She had received a phone call one evening and stepped onto the balcony to take it. When she returned, she looked different. Distracted. Worried. I had asked what was wrong. She had smiled and said, "Nothing you need to worry about." At the time, I believed her. Now I wondered whether that had been the first lie she ever told me. "Lily," I said carefully, "when did your mother give you the necklace?" She looked toward the window. "The day we left home." "Why did you leave?" Her fingers tightened around the pendant. "She said we had to disappear." I felt the air inside the car change. From whom? Lily looked directly at me. From the people who were looking for Grace. I said nothing. The car continued through the rain. My driver glanced at me through the mirror, but did not speak. Lily lowered her voice. My mother said Grace was trying to protect someone. Who? I asked. Lily looked down at the silver pendant. She never told me. Then she touched the edge of the keepsake and whispered. But she told my mother that one day, you would understand why. For the first time in years, I felt something stronger than grief. I felt doubt. Maybe I had spent years mourning the wrong version of the truth. The first thing I did when we reached my penthouse was ask Lily if she wanted something to eat. She looked at the polished marble floor, the tall windows, and the quiet rooms as if she had stepped into a place from another world. Do you have grilled cheese? She asked. The question caught me off guard. I can have the kitchen make one. She nodded, then carefully placed her flowers on the table beside her. For a moment, she looked like any other child after a long day. Then her hand moved instinctively toward the silver pendant beneath her sweater. I could not stop thinking about what she had said in the car. Grace was trying to protect someone. From the people who were looking for her. I had spent 6 years believing I understood the last weeks of my wife's life. I had reviewed every message, every photograph, every financial record. I had spoken to every person who had been near her. And yet there had always been one missing piece. Sarah Harper. I walked into my study and closed the door. My old files were still where I had kept them, untouched beneath a locked cabinet. I pulled out the folder marked Grace Callahan and opened it on my desk. The first photographs showed Grace smiling at a charity event. Another showed us on vacation in Maine. Then came the final photographs. Grace looked tired in those pictures. Not unhappy, just distracted. I turned to the notes from the week before she died. One sentence stopped me. Sarah Harper contacted Grace again. Follow up when convenient. I read it twice. Then a third time. I had seen that sentence before. Hundreds of times, probably. But I had never understood it. My phone rang. It was my longtime assistant, Daniel. I found something, he said. About Sarah Harper? Yes. But there is a problem. I leaned against the desk. What kind of problem? There is almost no record of her after Grace died. My eyes moved toward the hallway where Lily was waiting. Almost. She changed addresses several times. Different phone numbers. Different employers. It looks deliberate. I looked back at the file. Find the first address. Already did. Daniel hesitated. It was connected to a small apartment in Queens. I felt a strange pressure in my chest. What happened there? The lease was in Grace's name. Silence filled the room. I looked down at the photograph of my wife. For years, I had believed Grace had hidden something from me because she no longer trusted me. Now another possibility was taking shape. Maybe she had hidden something because she was trying to protect me. I returned to the living room. Lily was sitting at the edge of the sofa, holding a warm grilled cheese sandwich with both hands. She looked up when I entered. Did you find something? She asked. I stopped. How did you know I was looking? Lily gave me a small, uncertain smile. Because my mom said you would. I sat across from her. Lily, I need you to tell me something. What exactly did your mother say about Grace? She took a slow breath. Then she reached beneath her sweater and pulled out the silver pendant. She said Grace knew the truth about you. My heart seemed to stop. What truth? Lily turned the pendant over in her palm. She never told me. Then she looked into my eyes and whispered. She said the answer was hidden inside this. The word stayed with me long after Lily went to sleep. The answer was hidden inside the pendant. I had held that piece of silver in my hands more times than I could count, yet I had never imagined there could be anything inside it. Grace had worn it every day for 12 years. I remembered fastening the chain around her neck before dinners, vacations, charity events, even quiet mornings when she stood by the kitchen window drinking coffee. It had always seemed ordinary. Now it felt like a locked door. I returned to my study and placed the pendant beneath the desk lamp. The room was silent except for the soft ticking of the clock. I turned the pendant over carefully. The silver surface was worn from years of use, but near the edge I noticed something I had never seen before. A narrow seam. My fingers stopped. I reached for a small magnifying glass from the drawer and examined it again. There was definitely an opening, almost invisible beneath the engraved star. I called Daniel. I need you here. He arrived 20 minutes later. I showed him the pendant without explaining everything. Can you open this without damaging it? He studied the tiny seam. Possibly, but we should be careful. Then be careful. While he worked, I stood by the window and watched the rain moving across the glass. My mind kept returning to Grace. Her last week. Her quiet conversations. The way she had looked at me that final morning. I remembered asking her why she seemed distant. She had touched the pendant and smiled. Sometimes, Ethan, the things we protect are not ours to explain. At the time, I had thought she was speaking about someone else. Now I wondered if she had been trying to tell me everything without saying the words. Daniel finally looked up. It is open. I turned. Inside the pendant was a tiny folded piece of paper. My hands became cold before I even touched it. I unfolded it slowly. There were only 6 words written in Grace's handwriting. Trust the child, not Sarah. I stared at the message. Lily had said her mother gave her the pendant. Sarah had spent years hiding. And now Grace was telling me not to trust her. There is more, Daniel said quietly. Beneath the paper was a small photograph, no larger than a postage stamp. I lifted it toward the light. Grace stood beside Sarah. They were both smiling. Between them was a baby wrapped in a pale yellow blanket. My breath caught. I looked closer. The photograph had been taken 6 years before, the same year Grace died. Who was the baby? Daniel asked. I did not answer, because I already knew the date printed on the back. It was 3 months before Grace's death. And beneath the date, in Grace's handwriting, were 4 words that changed everything. Our daughter is safe. Our daughter is safe. I read the words again, but they refused to make sense. My daughter. Grace had never told me she was pregnant. Not once. I looked at the photograph until the edges blurred, then back at the date written on the reverse. 6 years ago, 3 months before Grace died. Lily had been standing in my living room less than 20 feet away, unaware that the truth about her life was sitting in my hand. I walked to the doorway and stopped. She was asleep on the sofa, curled beneath a blanket, her flower seller's apron folded beside her. She looked peaceful, innocent, nothing like the complicated world I had spent years building around myself. I lowered my voice. Daniel, I need you to verify something. He stepped closer. What? I showed him the photograph. His expression changed immediately. Ethan, find out who registered Lily Harper's birth. Quietly, he nodded and left the room. I stayed where I was, staring at the child who had unknowingly reopened the deepest wound of my life. My mind returned to Grace. The last morning I saw her, she had stood by the kitchen window wearing that same pendant. She had placed one hand over her stomach for just a second. I had noticed it. I had asked if she was feeling sick. She had smiled and said she was fine. I had believed her. Or maybe I had wanted to. My phone vibrated. Daniel was calling. We found the original birth record, he said. Lily Harper was born 6 years and 3 months ago. My heart tightened. Mother, Sarah Harper. Father, silence. There is no father listed. I looked toward Lily again. Keep searching. There is another problem. What? The record was amended 2 years later. Why? Daniel hesitated. The original hospital record lists the mother's name as Grace Callahan. I closed my eyes. For several seconds, I could hear nothing except the rain against the windows. Grace, my wife, Lily's mother. The woman I had buried in my heart for 6 years had apparently given birth to a daughter and somehow kept that daughter hidden from me. But then why had Sarah raised her? Why had Grace written that Lily was safe? And why had she warned me not to trust Sarah? I walked over to the sofa and sat several feet from Lily. She stirred, opened her eyes, and looked at me sleepily. Are you okay? She asked. I almost laughed at the question. Instead, I nodded. I found a picture of your mother. Lily sat up slowly. Grace. Yes. Her eyes widened. She told me never to forget her. My throat tightened. Did you ever meet her? Lily shook her head. No. Mom said Grace loved me very much. I looked down at the photograph again. She did. Lily reached for the pendant around her neck. She wanted you to have it someday. I froze. Who told you that? Lily looked confused. Mom. Then she whispered. She said when you finally found me, you would know what happened to Grace. She did not die the way you were told. Lily's voice was barely above a whisper, but the words filled the room. I stared at her, unable to answer. For 6 years, I had carried the same story in my mind. Grace had died, and I had been left with questions nobody could answer. Now a 9-year-old girl was telling me that the story was incomplete. Who told you that? I asked. Lily looked down at the pendant. My mom. What exactly did she say? Lily hesitated. She said Grace had to leave before the people looking for her found us. Us. That word stayed in the air. I sat back and tried to control my breathing. Lily, where did your mother live? Before you started selling flowers. A house in Queens. Do you remember the address? She shook her head. I was little. I nodded slowly. That is okay. I did not want to pressure her. She had already trusted me with more than most adults ever had. My phone rang again. Daniel, I found the original hospital file, he said. The birth record was altered 22 months after Lily was born. Who requested the change? Grace. My eyes closed. That is impossible. There is a signature. I looked at Lily. Are you certain? Yes. The signature matches the documents from her estate. I walked toward the window. The rain had slowed to a soft drizzle, leaving the city covered in reflections. What else? I asked. Daniel lowered his voice. There is a note attached to the file. It says, if anything happens to me, protect the child and keep her identity hidden. I felt something inside me shift. Grace had planned for this. She had known there was a possibility she would disappear from Lily's life. But why had she never told me? I turned toward Lily. Did your mother ever explain why she kept you away from me? Lily nodded. She said you had enemies. Everyone around me knows that. She said that was not the real reason. I waited. Lily looked at me with the same green eyes I remembered from Grace. She said you were looking in the wrong place. My heart sank. What does that mean? I do not know. She reached into the pocket of her little jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She gave me this too. I took it carefully. The paper was old and soft at the edges. I opened it. One sentence was written in Grace's handwriting. Do not look for the people who took me. Look for the person I trusted. I read it twice. Then a third time. Grace had not left me a list of enemies. She had left me a question. Who did she trust? My mind went immediately to Sarah, the woman who had raised Lily, the woman whose name appeared beside Grace's in an old photograph, the woman Grace had apparently trusted enough to protect her daughter. Yet the pendant had told me not to trust Sarah. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Lily watched my face. Are you angry with my mom? She asked. I looked at her and shook my head. No. I folded the note and held it carefully. But I think your mother has been waiting 6 years for me to understand something. Lily's eyes lowered. What? I looked at the pendant in her hand. That the person I have been searching for may not be the person I thought I lost. I knew where we had to go. The old apartment in Queens had been empty for years, but if Grace had left something there, I needed to see it with my own eyes. Lily sat quietly beside me in the back seat, holding the pendant beneath her sweater. The rain had finally stopped, and the streets reflected the city lights like long ribbons of gold. Are we going to my old home? She asked. Yes. Will my mom be there? I looked at her reflection in the window. I do not know. She nodded, accepting the answer without complaint. When we reached the building, I felt an unexpected pull of memory. I had never been there before, yet something about the entrance felt familiar. Daniel was waiting inside with the records he had found. The apartment was rented under Grace's name, he said. But there is more. He handed me a folder. Inside was a photograph of Grace standing outside the building. She was holding a small baby carrier. Lily leaned closer. That is me. I looked at the photograph again. Yes. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Lily pointed toward the building entrance. Mom used to say Grace brought me here. My attention snapped back to her. Before we left, I looked at Daniel. Find the apartment. We climbed 2 flights of stairs. The hallway smelled of old paint and rain. Apartment 3B was at the end. Daniel unlocked the door with the key found in the records. The room was almost empty. Dust covered the windowsills. A small wooden table stood near the wall. On it was a photograph frame turned face down. I picked it up. Grace. She was smiling, holding Lily as a baby. My fingers tightened around the frame. Why did she hide this from me? I whispered. Lily walked toward a bookshelf and stopped. That book. I followed her gaze. One old hardcover book sat apart from the others. She pulled it free. A folded envelope slipped from behind it and landed on the floor. My name was written across the front. Ethan. My hands went still. I opened it carefully. Inside was another photograph and a letter. The photograph showed Grace, Sarah, and Lily together. But Sarah was holding a second object. The same silver pendant. There were 2, Daniel said. I looked at him. What? He pointed to the photograph. Sarah wore an identical chain around her neck. I turned the picture over. Grace had written one sentence on the back. One pendant carries the truth. The other carries the reason. Lily looked confused. What does that mean? I did not answer. I was staring at the letter. Grace had written it to me years ago, but something about the final line made my hands tremble. Ethan, if you found this, then Sarah has finally brought Lily back to you. I read the sentence again. She had known. She had known Lily would eventually find me. Then I saw the last line. Do not blame Sarah. She was protecting you too. I looked at Lily, then at Daniel. The mystery was changing shape again. Sarah was not the person Grace had warned me about. She had been protecting Lily. She had been protecting me. And if that was true, there was only one question left. Who had Grace been afraid of all those years ago? The question followed me out of the apartment. Who had Grace been afraid of? I sat in the back seat beside Lily, while Daniel drove through Queens and the city lights moved across the windows. The letter rested in my hands. I had spent 6 years believing my greatest failure was losing Grace. Now I was beginning to understand that I had never truly known what she had been trying to save. Lily was quiet. She watched the streets pass by, then finally asked, "Are you going to find my mom?" I looked at her. "I am going to find the truth first." She nodded slowly. Mom said that was what Grace wanted. Those words stayed with me. When we reached the penthouse, Daniel brought every file connected to Grace into my study. We worked for hours. Birth records, property records, old messages, charity documents, travel records. Nothing. Then Daniel placed one final folder on the desk. "This came from a private archive," he said. "It was never included in the official investigation." I opened it. Inside was a single photograph taken at a charity dinner 6 years ago. Grace stood beside several guests. One man stood slightly behind her. I knew him immediately. Richard Vale, my former business advisor. The man I had trusted with almost everything. I stared at the photograph. Grace had been looking directly at him, and her expression was not the warm smile she gave everyone else. She looked cautious. Why was this never shown to me? I asked. Daniel turned another page. There was a handwritten note from Grace. "Richard knows about Lily." I stopped breathing for a moment. Beneath it was another sentence. "He believes Ethan knows nothing." I read those words again and again. Richard had not simply known about Lily. He had believed I did not know she existed. That meant Grace had been hiding Lily from more than me. She had been hiding her from someone who was watching our lives closely. I closed the folder. "Find Richard." Daniel hesitated. "He left the country 6 years ago." "Where is he now?" "Boston." I looked toward the living room. Lily was sitting at the table, carefully arranging her small flowers in a glass jar. She looked peaceful. She had no idea how much her life had changed in one night. I walked over and sat across from her. "Lily, your mother protected you for a reason." She looked up. "Is it because of Richard?" I froze. "How do you know that name?" She reached into her pocket and pulled out another folded note. "Mom told me never to say it unless you found the second pendant." My eyes moved to the silver chain around her neck. "Where is the second pendant?" Lily looked toward the hallway. "My mom has it." Then the front door opened. Sarah Harper stepped inside, soaked from the rain and breathing hard. She looked at me, then at Lily. Her eyes filled with tears. "Ethan," she whispered, "we have run out of time. We have run out of time." Sarah's words hung in the room, and for the first time since I had found Lily, I saw genuine fear in the woman's face. Not fear of me, fear of what would happen if we waited another minute. Lily stood immediately. "Mom." Sarah crossed the room and pulled her into a careful embrace. Then she looked at me. "I am sorry, Ethan. I wanted answers, but I could see that she was exhausted." "Tell me everything." Sarah nodded and sat down. "Grace did not want you to know about Lily because she believed someone close to you was watching you. She discovered that Richard Vale had been using information from your business to pressure people around you. When Grace realized Lily existed, she understood that your daughter could become the easiest way to control you." I looked at Lily. "Why did Grace trust you?" Sarah's eyes softened. "Because I was her friend long before I ever knew who you were." She reached into her coat and removed a small silver pendant. It was almost identical to Lily's. I stared at it. "The second pendant." Sarah nodded. "Grace gave this to me the night before she disappeared. She placed it on the table. She told me that one day, if you found Lily, I should give you this." I opened it carefully. Inside was another tiny photograph. Grace was holding Lily as a baby, smiling through tears. On the back were words written in her handwriting. "Ethan, if you are reading this, then I finally found the courage to tell you what I could not say. Lily is our daughter. I wanted to tell you. I wanted a life with you. With her, and with nothing hidden between us. But I learned that someone was using our family to reach you. I could not risk her future. I could not risk yours. I read the letter with shaking hands. There was one final sentence. Do not choose revenge. Choose her. I looked at Lily. She was watching me with quiet uncertainty. For 6 years, I had believed Grace's final gift was a memory. It was not. It was a responsibility. I folded the letter and placed it against my heart. Lily, I said softly, I do not know how to make up for the years we lost. She looked down. Can we start now? The simplicity of the question broke through everything I had built around myself. I nodded. Yes, we can start now. Sarah wiped away a tear. Then she looked toward the window. There is one more thing. I turned to her. What? She pointed to the second pendant. Grace told me that Richard was never the person she feared most. My chest tightened. Then who was it? Sarah looked directly at me. She was afraid you would never discover the truth about your own family. Silence filled the room. Lily reached for my hand. I held it gently. For the first time, I was not searching for a lost wife. I was not searching for an enemy. I was standing beside the daughter Grace had fought so hard to protect. And suddenly, I understood what her final message had really meant. She had not left me a path back to the past. She had left me a reason to become someone worthy of the future.